Hey everybody, welcome to the Triple S League live stream, news live stream about Cyberpunk 2077. We've been having a lot of fun doing these days, and there's just been so much news to talk about with regard to this upcoming game that we are super hyped for, Cyberpunk 2077. So we're here with Subsidian as always, and also we have the Mad Queen, who is
Greetings, Earthlings.
Becoming super regular on our channel, which is absolutely fantastic because we love her around here and she's a lot of fun and she has tons of knowledge about Cyberpunk 2077. So hello to everybody who is watching the stream and in the chat. We look forward to talking to you. Feel free to post your comments, questions, anything else you want to talk about with regards to Cyberpunk. And so the main topic we're going to be discussing today is something we posted in a video a few days ago. Not just a couple days ago, I guess. So Mike Pondsmith, of course, the creator of Cyberpunk, did an interview with a European telecommunications company that was aired then in Spain, we think. We've been having trouble finding some actual details on it, but it's available on YouTube. You can find the link in the description below. Now, he's speaking English in the interview, and this is a recent interview. But it's dubbed over heavily in Spanish, so that kind of screws over those of us who don't speak Spanish. Now, Mad Queen has been able to break down a little bit about what he's talking about, of course, being from Spain. Hello, Legolevic. Hello, David Velasquez, Ricolite, and Lee Sutcliffe. Lots of regulars in the chat again. It's great to see you all. All right, so this interview Mike Pondsmith gave very recently. Now, we were able to find a way to translate the Spanish subtitles on the video into English, and so we've at least got the gist of what he was talking about, and there was some information in there that suggested that he might know a thing or two about the trailer that we are expecting to see at E3 2018, that CD Projekt Red, it's been confirmed, is going to be participating in E3 2018. We imagine it's going to be in some significant way, and there's been some info leaked that they are bringing a trailer and possibly a tech demo or a playable demo. So that's a quick recap of where we're at right now. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what we might see in this trailer based on what Mike Pondsmith said in the interview, and then a few other things that he said in the interview as well that give us some information about the development of the game, and then we'll just talk to you guys in chat about whatever you want to talk about with regard to Cyberpunk 2077. So, all right. So, Mad Queen, being the one who was actually able to understand the Spanish dubbing of the video, and then you put out a video sort of breaking down some of the major points. What do you see as what was it that gave you the hint that when he was talking about things we'll see in a trailer, that this was a new trailer and not the teaser that we've all been watching for 5 years now?
Well, to be honest, at first I thought he was talking about the teaser because he was talking about the amount of death. And there's this point in the teaser where you have all the dead people in the floor, and Network News 54 is broadcasting this and talking about the cyber psycho that went psycho. And at first, the first time that I saw this commercial, I thought that he was talking about that. But then he said something about reflections in the windows, and there's no reflections in the windows in the teaser. There are advertisings of other companies. You have Kiroshi, and you have this other cyberwar company, can't remember the name. And other thing that Mike Pondsmith says in this Vodafone commercial is that we will be able to see things in the newspapers. And, well, there are no newspapers in the teaser. That was the first thing I had to watch it like 3 or 4 times to realize this. there are no newspapers in the teaser. So the first thing that I thought when I realized that he may be talking about a new trailer is that when we all saw the teaser, mostly the people like me who have played a lot of Cyberpunk 2020, the first thing that we wanted to see in the game is that the game is faithful to the lore. And that is something that we could see in the trailer with all the brands that were represented, an important character from the law. Even the gun that the Psycho Squad guy is using is a gun from a mega corporation in the law. The name of his Psycho Squad unit, everything is from the law. And the trailer is full of, the teaser. The teaser is full of details, and hearing him saying that the trailer is also going to be full of details leads me to believe that they are going to be as faithful to the lore as we expected, which is amazing. It's amazing.
Well, considering they're working with Mike Pondsmith so closely, and the creator of Cyberpunk 2020 and all of the lore.
With this regard, this is something that I've been told by someone working at CD Projekt, that Mike Pondsmith is not 100% of the time involved in the project. He doesn't know everything that goes on, and that probably his view of this trailer can change if because we are still very far from the E3. And in the way, the trailer can't change. So everything that we in here discuss about the trailer, it may happen that in the near future, because we are getting closer to seeing the trailer, that in the near future, future. Oh, my math, I don't know what's happening. In the near future, the trailer may change. So we may be expecting some things like the amount of death that Mike Pondsmith says in this commercial. And maybe at some point they decide that it doesn't work as the first teaser and they change it. So we shouldn't take the words of Mike Pondsmith as gospel because of that, because he is not working 100% of the time inside the offices of CD Projekt Red.
Right.
But one of the things that we do want to stress is that Mike Pondsmith has been a core pillar to the general game design. So when he talks about the direction, when he talks about what they're trying to achieve, that's all most likely still very, very relevant because, and this is the other thing that we need to talk, when we do talk about Mike Pondsmith talking about stuff, he's not involved in the super day-to-day, but he is involved in the overarching thing. He's also not under the same NDA that a lot of the employees are under. So he's under a bit of a different one where they're like, just don't talk about any, specifics, because obviously he's going to get questions in regards to his own product from his own point of perception. That's why he's talked about the classes before, and he's talked about some of the general directions before, and he's got a big list of things that he's not supposed to talk about, and then things that he can talk about in very vague kind of descriptive forms. And so that's what we have in this. He talks about, the trailer that's coming out that we're going to see, which some of our reporting, some of our information has pointed out that may already be in fact done, and quite possibly has been done for a while. But we don't know that for sure. So that's one of the things that, like, really take this with a grain of salt. But when he talks about it, the general perception and the general vibe, I think we can expect to see that vibe in the trailer. So we're going to see things like, hit lots of hidden things. I'm really hoping that the trailer that we're going to see at E3, which is almost 100% confirmed now, like we've got it on EA's website that they're going to be there. It's very doubtful that they would be there and they wouldn't show anything. It's been leaked by multiple sources, multiple different sources, and we've been hearing all kinds of wording and information about it, and people like not wanting to talk about the issue directly. When something doesn't exist and somebody's asking you about it, you can brush it off. But when something does exist and somebody's asking you about it and it's a secret, the way that you brush it off is often is very different at times. So the way that this was asked and the way that he responded to it, I think we can assume that it's going to be out. So what we're going to see is lots of like hidden things in the trailer, and we're going to see all this really awesome hidden content, like little hints and blips. And I really think they're going to have a strong media campaign that's going to follow this. They're embracing this secretive, almost cyberpunkish style of dealing in covert information. The fact that their first tweet in 5 years was a beep instead of like, just say, hey, stay tuned for more information. Like, instead they go beep. So they're being cryptic at the same time as being, embracing. So they're really embracing that kind of side of the lore and the style of this world, which is going to be very very cryptic, very you're going to have hackers sending information. I really think we're going to see some code that people are going to try and like decode and figure out, and those are often some of the best media campaigns that people can put out. Not to say that they'll do a big one, but that they will definitely have some hidden tidbits inside that trailer. Like one of the things that we saw in the original teaser was Mad Queen. What was the best little sneak thing that they had in that trailer?
Well, you mean Al Cunningham?
Yeah, it was Al Cunningham in the window, dress up, and that's, it might just be a throwback, but it also might be hinting at maybe what the main story is going to focus around. Like, you never know.
Well, for the people that doesn't know the lore, Al Cunningham is a net runner that is one of the main characters in the lore of Cyberpunk 2020. And she was a net runner, and she was developing a program called the Soul Killer that gave net runners the ability to upload their soul to the net. So at one point, one of the main evil mega corporations, that is a Japanese conglomerate, Arasaka, found out about she developing this application and kidnapped her to make some modifications to this Soul Killer. So once it came through the hands of Arasaka, the Soul Killer turned into an application that trapped the soul of the netrunner and then sent a signal that killed the body of the netrunner. Because the net in Cyberpunk is not like, for instance, in the Matrix, that if you die in the Matrix, your body understands that you're dead and you die. In the net, you can't directly die in the net. If you are destroyed in the net, you just return to your body. But the Soul Killer, what it does, it sends a signal to the body to kill it. So the first person where the Soul Killer was used with was Al Cunningham. And Al Cunningham got trapped in the framework of Arasaka, and she was trapped in their main building in Night City in the corporate center. So there was this event that was called the Fourth Corporate War, that if you know a very little about the lore, you probably learned about. That is the main event that happens in the lore of Cyberpunk 2020. And the Fourth Corporate War, what was is the hostile takeovers that are done in this universe that is ruled by mega corporations are not economical. If you want to take over a company, you send an army and send missiles, and you physically you physically take control of this company. So the thing is that there was this oceanic megacorporation that was crumbling, and there were other two oceanic megacorporations that wanted to take hold of this third and dying corporation. So these two oceanic megacorporations hired the military services of two competing megacorporations. One hired Militech, the American Militech, and the other one hired the Japanese Arasaka. So at first it was a covert war, so it wasn't obvious that it was a war going on in there, but as Militech and Arasaka were long-time enemies, at one point they just said, well, fuck it, and wanted to destroy each other. So this became the Fourth Corporate War. That was a worldwide war. Everybody needed to take side on this. So this war was finished in a campaign that you can play as a player. Is one of the expansions of Cyberpunk 2020 called Firestorm. And Militech assembles a team that is led by the rocker boy Johnny Silverhand to go to destroy Arasaka's archaeologists in Night City. So while you are there, one of the things that you discover is that Al Cunningham is trapped inside the servers of Arasaka. And you release her into the net. So why is this important? Al Cunningham is the only personality in the lore that may have survived all the way to 2077. What does that mean? That probably if the net is going to be one of the sandbox environments we talked about, if you are in the net, most probably Alt Cunningham is going to be one of the NPCs that you're going to find in the net, because she's immortal.
I have to think that is not an insignificant detail, that they would put that in the teaser.
So that's why it's so important that she was in the teaser.
Yeah, and that really points out that I think they're embracing this whole, like, you know, very mysterious, mischievous type of dropping clues and hints and stuff like that. So we're gonna see more and more of that going forward. So what else did Mike Pondsmith say in this interview? And there's some really, really important things in here that need to be looked at.
We haven't actually touched on what we're expecting to see in the trailer. Did we want to finish on that before moving on to the other things he said? Like, do we have... He touched on that there's going to be lots of death and destruction. There's going to be tons of hints, like, on screens and written in newspapers. And I also went back and watched the teaser just to double-check that there weren't any newspaper headlines.
I also did that.
Yeah, because I almost... I started to remember... I was remembering back, and I was like, weren't there newspapers flying down the street in that? But... No, there aren't. So,
well, in this regard, I would like to answer a question that David Velasquez is making on the comments. That he says Cyberpunk is very different from other RPGs, and death and violence is much more prevalent than, say, D&D. Well, this is part of the Cyberpunk philosophy. So Cyberpunk talks a lot about life and death, mostly because we are talking about a future where technology allows you to do a lot of things, and one of them is extending your life. But on the other hand, it also talks about the future where surviving is very difficult. So you have this future where, in one hand, living longer is easier, but it's harder because it's really hard to survive. So this is a structural theme on the game of Cyberpunk, and as David pointed out, this is a theme that is very prevalent in the pen and paper role-playing game, because even though you live in a world where you know that you have the technology to live longer, on the other hand, you know that you may die soon, because surviving in here is incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be a big part of the game. So one of the things that he was talking about, like, that we'd see in the trailer, this new trailer coming up, is mangled bodies. And I guess you had mentioned that in your video too, is that we're gonna the amount of blood and gore that we potentially are going to see is going to be a whole lot worse than it was in The Witcher 3, right?
And I am glad about that, because, well, let's not forget that CD Projekt they are not American, and Americans have a different point of view about what is violent and what are the limits of violence. And as we're talking about a universe that is so violent per se, having these restrictions, these cultural restrictions on the ways of portraying violence just doesn't go with the spirit of the game. That's why it's so important to know that the developer of this game is not American. We in Europe, we have a higher tolerance for violence when it's not real, obviously, when we're talking about fantasy violence. We have a much higher tolerance to that, and this also will mean that the game is going to be way more violent in a way that it was in The Witcher. You could dismember people when you were so fighting. Some of the times you ended the fight cutting an arm or a leg or the head or whatever. And I believe that this violence in the society is part of what we said before about life and death in the game. Violence is something really, really important. And it's probable, I believe that it's probable that many people, mostly because for this cultural difference, in America, they may feel offended by the amount of violence that is in the game. Well, obviously, if we take a look at the sales of The Witcher 3, there are not many people that are offended with the violence there. So
I mean,
luck,
look at the sales from Doom. I mean, people are.
I was going to say it's definitely gone. I mean, if that cultural difference is still prevalent, then this is going to be way over the top. Considering
yes, but it's very different in Doom because you don't kill humans, you kill demons.
But you look at the violence of Fallout 4, which was a Bethesda property. I mean, there's all kinds of dismemberments and heads exploding and things happening in that.
Eyeballs flying at you. Oh,
so
the number of times I've had an eyeball fly at me in that game.
Well, I'm totally on with the violence of Fallout 4, but I encountered, for instance, when I was doing videos on the building feature of Fallout 4, I made a video about decorating with corpses. Because if you're a raider, that's one thing that you want for your settlements, is to make sure that people understand that messing with you is not a good idea. So what's the best way to do so? Decorate the outside of your walls with bodies, with dead bodies, to make sure that people understand what happens when you mess with them. And there were a lot of people, all of them American, that were offended by the amount of gore that I had in this video. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, but I am quite positive that I'm talking about Fallout 4, which is a game that it's not for kids.
Yes,
no, absolutely.
Yes. This is not going to be for kids either. We still have some info that we've been setting up for quite a while about that. So stay tuned for that. Overall, I would like to cover very quickly some of the other things that Mike Pondsmith has said in this interview. So you guys have any final thoughts on the trailer and that stuff before we move on?
Yes, there's one thing that I wanted to say that as I said before, and all of them are commenting in the comments, is that the fact that Mike Pondsmith is in this project means that it's going to be faithful to the law. And he said many times before that there were two main reasons why he didn't accept to make a Cyberpunk 2020 video game up to today. First was because this is something that he also mentions in this interview with Vodafone. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why he didn't accept that is because the technology wasn't there, and at the time when he was first asked to allow a video game on Cyberpunk, it was impossible for the technology to create crowds and to recreate the streets of Night City.
Yeah.
Oh, wait just a minute. Lego said that I am a little loud. Just a second. Am I better now? So, YouTube should have given the tools for that. Well, I hope.
Well, I can adjust you both individually, but when I did the test recording,
yes. Let's say what Lego Levick says about my volume.
If you've turned yourself down, if the volume levels are still off, I wonder if you're talking louder than you were when we did the test recording beforehand. I think maybe you are.
It can be because I tend to get overexcited when talking about these things. So
animated by pure hype. That's
yes.
That's oh man. Okay, that's gonna be one of the first T-shirts we make. Here, I will turn. Don't do anything, Mad Queen. I'll adjust your volume here on my end a little bit. All right.
So back to the building. The two main reasons. Excuse me. The two main reasons why he didn't make a game. One was the technology, and the second was that he wanted to make sure that the company that was developing a game on Cyberpunk shared his vision about what the game was. Mm-hmm. And this is a very important thing to note, because he had a very specific vision about what Cyberpunk 2020 was, and he wants to make sure that the video game follows this vision. And this is the most important thing about the game. I am sure that CD Projekt can make a fantastic job on the game, but the fact that Mike Pondsmith is supervising all this job is what hypes me the most.
Yes, and I think that is fantastic that he held out for the technology to be in place. He held out for the right company that shared his vision, and that wasn't going to try to turn it into something that it wasn't. I think that's fantastic. I'm sure we could come up with examples of cases where that just didn't happen properly.
Well, there's some examples of where it goes really well, and that's like, for example, James Cameron. He had the idea for Avatar for a very long time.
All right, Cyber, you're breaking up, or you've gone robot voice on us here. So
robot.
Which actually matters with today's subject.
Okay, now now Queen, you are as well. So hopefully this is not going to be a technical problem for the rest of the stream here. Let's just see if the
it should be better now.
Okay, yes, right? You sound better now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually your connection.
Yeah,
figured as much, but anyway. All right, let's carry on.
So, just a second, I want to reply a comment by David Velasquez said, McQueen doesn't need medicine to get better. Just release a teaser for video from CDPR and she will rehype herself back to good health. Well, I wanted to make a comment about that because I've been ill for a week and something with bronchitis, and I was feeling like absolutely horrible, and then I don't remember what was the piece of news that appeared about Cyberpunk. And I just started making a video, and I felt like totally back to my health again. Actually, people were commenting that on the video, like, weren't you ill? Yes, I was supposed to be ill, but I don't know. The trailer just gave me some kind of energy that I thought I didn't have.
I want to make that should be one of our first T-shirts that we make. A picture of Mad Queen and just the words "animated by pure hype."
Yes, I don't need to eat.
Or
I feed on hype.
Yeah. Or like a pill bottle. With like
a pillow bottle?
100% pill bottle. Pillow bottle? What is a pillow bottle?
Well, I was imagining a pillow made of butter, which
pillow butter.
Very weird thing. Yes, that's what I understood.
This is taking a strange turn. Pillow butter. Yuck. All right, we're doing great, Axel. Thanks for asking. All right. Now that's so that tangent is out of the way. So where were we before we went down that rabbit trail?
So yeah, I was gonna say I had a joke about James Cameron, and that's why I brought it up. I'm not a huge fan of him, but going back onto what Mike Pondsmith says, he was shocked how far technology has come in 30 years. And he even talks about in 87, he had this kind of idea of where technology would be, and then 30 years later, it's much further past in some areas than he thought.
It's kind of interesting, yeah.
Like another 30 years from now could be like, oh my goodness, right?
You look, it's kind of funny because you watch Star Trek episodes from 20 years ago, like Next Generation, and some of the technology is, of course, way beyond what we have still. The space travel and the transportation and stuff like that, and but then some of our technology is way beyond what they portrayed in the show as well. So there's kind of that disconnect where there's like certain things get, we've shot way past what people thought we would have. Or you watch Back to the Future Part 2 as well, right? Like
well, that's a classic.
They had the flying cars and hoverboards and things, but then their 3D graphics and things were horrible, and like when he walks into the Cafe 80s, and I think don't they have, I was just thinking about that because Mad Queen, you're a big Max Headroom fan, and don't they have Max Headroom come on the screen there or something? I don't know, I could be
in Back to the Future.
Yeah,
I believe that the scene that you have in mind is with Jaws, the Shark film.
Well, Jaws does, the Jaws hologram comes out, and you can see there that the 3D technology, like we're way beyond that in terms of our 3D technology, or when he walks into his future house and there's the computer voice talking, we've shot way past that as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because we evolved. This is something that I follow William Gibson on Twitter. He's called Great Dismissal or something like that. By the way, if you like Cyberpunk, you would do good in following William Gibson on Twitter. And he said that for those who don't know, William Gibson is the writer who more or less invented what Cyberpunk is. Cyberpunk 2020 has a lot of inspiration taken from William Gibson and his Pro trilogy.
Right.
3 books, very interesting, read them. So he said that the technology changed a lot, but what didn't change is the intentions. That's why when people wrote about Cyberpunk, they didn't exactly match all the aspects that have to do with technology, because they thought that they would be flying cars, and they didn't think about smartphones. But the one thing that didn't change was the intentions. That's why the political part of Cyberpunk is so similar to what we are living nowadays.
And yeah, that's right, David. They had printers all over the houses in the future, and the faxes. Yeah. Read my fax. You're fired. The "you're fired" prints out all over the house. Oh man, I haven't watched that movie in far too long.
So, anyways, getting back to what Pondsmith says, he talks about how in Cyberpunk, one of the things that separates us, and I mean, this is kind of clear now. Like right now, you have fewer and fewer human-on-human interactions. Like, big fan of Rooster Teeth and Gus Sorolla over there. He's always talking about how, technology, the pinnacle of technology for him is where he doesn't have to interact with anybody that he doesn't want to interact with
Ever.
Ever. And the more that comes to being, like this Amazon store, right, came out, and you can walk in, pick up whatever you want, and then leave, and everything's automatically taken care of. So he talks about that, and he's like, this is brilliant. And then he, and the natural progression to that would be in 20 years, like that's going to be the way it is. Like nobody's going to go to Walmart. You're going to go to Walmart to either pick up your bundled shopping that you have done online, or it's just going to come to your house. And it might even come to your house via drones. Now, this is good, but this makes for really bad gameplay mechanics. And the cyberpunk world that Mike Pondsmith is shooting for wants that difference of technology where there's still people on the streets, and that you're using the technology to communicate, but there's still that person-to-person factor. So he talks about that, and here he goes, Cyberpunk is basically focused on how the street and the ordinary people use technology to fight against those who rule, that is the big companies and the people with power, those at the top kind of thing. And that technology is the tool, and it's also this great, and you have it nowadays, technology is an amazing equalizer. Everybody has the opportunity to do what they want to do, whereas like a few years ago, even 20 years ago, even and further back from that, it's like you couldn't get on national TV, but now you can make a video that can go worldwide, right?
Yeah, well, I want to point out something about this, because this is the cyberpunk utopia. What in the 90s people thought that the internet was going to be, and everybody thought that the internet was going to be a place that would be highly democratic. But the truth is that this isn't true. Internet right now is ruled by Google. Google is the mega corporation that controls internet, and anything that Google believes that doesn't belong to the internet, he doesn't need to erase it. It only needs not to appear in the Google search, and it automatically disappears. So on some point it is more democratic in the sense that you can get out there on the internet, but if you want people to see you, that is not that democratic. If you put a product on the internet, if you have more money to spend in advertising this product, you're going to reach more people than if you don't have money. So it's not exactly that it's democratic. Is that somehow we feel that the chance is there, but it's not exactly true, because internet is Google at this point.
It is a very sobering thing to think about, how much control we're voluntarily giving over to these mega corporations.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I think our overlord is a wonderful, wonderful being who is ever, deserving of praise and admiration. Now, you remember when I was saying that the best way to work around the whole auto demonetization thing is to be very, very
very sarcastic.
Sarcastic, because computers don't understand sarcasm. So yes, our wonderful overlords and masters are
All
only doing
hail
what's
our
best for us.
Google
So I don't know
overlords.
what you guys are talking about, but they're great. But no, that's the thing that we're gonna have a video on how the internet is going to work in Cyberpunk 2077. We have some information on it, but we're trying to figure out some more stuff here. So, but we'll come back to this as a video in the future and possibly a live stream. But for now, what Mike is saying in this is that he wants this level of technology there. And then this next little bit in the interview, he goes on to say that he was approached to make a video game in the Cyberpunk universe back in the 80s, but
before we discuss that, let me say something to finish the previous subject about the evolution of technology, because this is something very important that Mike Pondsmith says in the game that is also something that is very important inside the Cyberpunk 2020 universe, is how technology is used to put regular people at the same level as the people in power. So sometimes we tend to forget all the commodities that the technology gives us because we are so used to that. For instance, 40 years ago, if you had a friend who lived in another country, you needed to pick a plane to go see this friend. And now, thanks to technology, you don't need to physically be in one place to be in one place. Because actually now, I'm in Spain, you two are in the other country, the other corner of the world, and go figure where all the people watching this is, and we are all together. And this is thanks to technology. This just wasn't possible before the internet. So this is a part where technology is for everybody. And this is the point. I want to connect this point to what I said before. This is a universe where technology gives you the impression that you can do a lot of things, but at the same time, it's difficult to make them. This technology gives you the impression that you can live forever, but you can live forever as long as you can survive your everyday life. And this is something that he says in this interview with Vodafone, that technology is used to fight authority. We have a lot of people expressing expressing ideas on Twitter that go around the world with something as simple as a tweet. And in one hand, we are living in the same moment now. Technology put us at some higher level, things that before only the people on power could do, which is, for instance, constantly interact with people on the other side of the world. Yep. And now we can do it on a daily basis. So we kind of live in this cyberpunk universe where we are so used to technology. We believe that this is part of our life. I don't feel that we sometimes realize how far we went with technology. Maybe because we thought that at this late we would have flying cars and flying Hoovers and this kind of stuff. But we have internet. Internet is marvelous. It's absolutely fantastic.
I'd rather have this than a flying car, that's for sure.
I wanted a flying car.
Well, a flying car would be fun. Absolutely, but
I don't know. There's enough accidents with non-flying cars.
Well, I was going to say now it's going to be self-driving flying cars anyway. So, isn't that interesting that it went to the cars became self-driving long before they became flying? And I mean, who knows if flying cars will ever be a practical reality?
Oh no, they will be. This is the breakthrough that we've been waiting for. See, the problem with flying cars, when you have a person controlling it, is you need a person who has like.
You practically need a pilot's license to...
Yes, you need the equivalent, and that's it. You need to... There are flying cars out there right now. There's a handful of them that are designed as basic specs, and then there's a handful that people have made on their own. But they all need a pilot's license in order to pilot the thing. And in order to get that pilot's license, you have to spend, hundreds of hours in training and in classes, and then being monitored and all this kind of stuff. There's new flying cars that are being developed for in certain places in Asia, especially in Japan, where these flying cars will take you from building top to building top inside one city, and there are no controls. Everything is and they're starting to prep the prototypes right now, and they will they'll take off from one tower building, fly like 10 blocks over and drop you off at another tower building, and you don't even have to hit the ground floor. So this kind of technologies, I mean, we're going to see this like more and more and more and more, and like, oh my goodness, this is going to be.
What do they use? What do they use for propulsion on those kinds of things? Like, how do they stay in the air?
Just regular old jet fuel, basically.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a higher octane than regular gas. Basically, you just it's the same thing helicopters use. It's a type of jet fuel, basically. It's a little bit cleaner burning. It's a little bit more expensive, obviously, but for stuff like this, like you're gonna, instead of having to go down to the lobby, grab a taxi, then go through traffic, you're gonna go to the top floor, step into this flying car thingy, having already chosen your destination before you've even arrived there. It'll fly you over, drop you off, and that'll be like 2 minutes. You'll be in the air for 2 minutes, and that's how long it'll take for the thing to take off and land. So,
to answer your question, Tomer, yes, he does mention a trailer and talks about things we'll see in it. Now, he doesn't specifically mention what or where we'd see this trailer, but that seems to be that he's talking about an upcoming trailer, because he mentions things that were not in the previous teasers. And we're speculating that it's the trailer that we're going to see at E3, or possibly something else. But it ties nicely in with the information we've gotten about the fact that CDPR is going to be active at E3. They're going to be... could it be very calculated on CDPR's part? Yeah, it very well could be. I mean, just the pattern that's emerging of things that have been coming out almost looks like it's a series of very controlled leaks.
Yeah, so remember what I said well, most people won't remember, but last year I said in the fall, this is how the release window for this is going to be. So in January, early January, we get some kind of a very small thing basically saying that they're starting the marketing process of the game, and then we get one or two short leaks that are too close to the company and the sources to be really argued with, and then we get probably some kind of a lore drop in and around March. And then we'd get a couple other leaks, and then we'd probably get a new trailer in and around E3. Now, that's what I said 6 months ago, and we are basically spot on to that right now. So what we're going to see here is some more smaller leaks by some sources. Leaks are going to be coming all over the place, and then we're going to get something official probably sometime in March, I would imagine. March or the long weekend, one of the long weekends, probably, or spring break. We will probably get something there, and then we're not going to get anything majorly official until we get the trailer, which will be right before E3, or we'll get some kind of a video, and then at E3 we're going to get a trailer and probably a little bit of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think we're gonna. That's what I'm pretty confident that we're gonna see. So
awesome.
Oh my god! Let me interrupt you. I'm sorry, but I need to interrupt you. So I went back to the teaser right now on YouTube.
Okay.
Because I was so pissed that I couldn't remember the name of the company that was here in the video. The Cyberpunk company is Dynalar Technologies. So I was watching the video just to stop it on the name of Dynalar Technologies to remember the name of the company. This company makes cyberware. I'll make a video about cyberware in the future. And there are things inside this window that I didn't realize until now.
Oh boy.
Oh my god.
Mad Queen's not going to sleep for a week now.
No, I won't. I've seen. It's the first time that I noticed this. I didn't go into that detail. Well, in fact, I was preparing a video that I didn't finish yet about all the details in the teaser. I just realized there are things inside. There are things. This is a Dynalar shop.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got hyped alone.
Well,
okay.
Can you imagine though? Can you with with how crazy everybody went over a tweet that said beep, and now we're looking back at the teaser being like, what was in there, what wasn't, and you know, we're still finding new things, dissecting that teaser. Imagine how crazy things are going to be when they actually release a trailer, especially if they you know, release some gameplay. That's going to be...
Well, I remember having this conversation in the official forum of CD Projekt Red, the Cyberpunk 2077 forum, because I was preparing this video about the details of the teaser. And one of the things that I couldn't find, because, well, Cyberpunk 2020 has an insane amount of lore. And when I mean insane, I mean really insane. They have like 50 books. Obviously, I don't own them all. And not only I don't own them all, I even don't know what books I don't have. So one of the things that I couldn't find out was the weapons, because everything in the trailer is so detailed. I mean, the arms of the Cyber Psycho, this is something that you can find in the lore. The type of cyberware that she's wearing, the gun of the Psycho Squad guy, this is something that is also in the lore. But one thing that I couldn't find was what brand was doing the guns for the police people.
Right.
And we started discussing this, and apart from I knew that they were going to be Militech. That's the only thing that I knew about that. But I couldn't find the exact model of the guns because I was looking for that. And we started discussing about these guns, and then somehow the discussion just turned into discussing the slightest details about that. Because, yeah, that gun, it can't be that gun, because when you shoot with that gun, the bullets go straight, and in the trailer, they go round, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So there's an insane amount of details in this teaser, but I mean insane, totally insane. And all of them, everything that I could find, except for the window that I just realized right now, everything that you can find in the trailer, every single thing is in the lore.
Yeah.
It's in the lore. I mean, the gun that the Psycho Squad police is holding against the Cyber Psycho. This is a Militech. What's the motor? A Crusher, and the Crusher is in the lore. You can see how powerful this gun is. I mean, all this teaser, the level of detail that it has, and the level how faithful to the lore it is. And it's absolutely amazing.
I think that was the point of the teaser, was to show Cyberpunk fans how carefully, how well they're going to treat the lore, how true they're going to be to the lore. And I mean, as well as being an awesome looking trailer for people who don't know about the world, but are going to look at that and say, what is going on here? I want to know more. And that is a fantastic way to keep people coming back for more, is you leave them with unanswered questions.
Well, all right. This again takes us back to Mike Pondsmith talking about how, you know, he wanted to make this game, but he couldn't make it in the 80s because the technology wasn't there yet.
It just absolutely was not there, yeah.
And then he tried to do this again because he worked on the Matrix Online game. And one of his big frustrations, and I remember watching an interview with him back when this game was, you know, just about to release, is that he was very he said he really tried to have like crowds and like have people in the streets and that kind of thing, because he thought that it was really, really important, but the technology just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And the best crowds that you could get was like a ring of like 8 NPCs. And it's like, and even then the game was like, I can't handle 8 NPCs on the screen at one time. Just
the technology has advanced. Mm-hmm. It's insane. It's insane.
But I think we're gonna see this in Cyberpunk 2077. I think we're gonna see that there are gonna be crowds of people. I think that they're going to find a way to incorporate a lot more bodies on the screen than there was in The Witcher. In the Witcher series, you definitely had a lot of people on the screen, but you didn't have like, you know, a couple hundred. Like Skyrim, you have this problem too, right? You walk into a city in Skyrim and you're like, oh, I'm in a city. There should be hundreds of people on screen right now. And instead you got Yosilda and like 2 guards and, you know,
yeah.
And that one really bossy little girl running around, you know, trying to extort money from everybody. And that was it. And during a fight, you could maybe get like maybe 10, 15 people on the screen at one time. before your system started to crash. Well, now there's mods that for the SE and for the original that really extend it up, and I've been able to get 100 versus 100 on my screen and have it mostly work until it crashes. But I think we're going to see that. Oh yeah, Civil War is no joke. It was a joke in the original, in the vanilla. There are mods where it makes it where there's bands of 50 enemies, fighting against 50 enemies in just one valley, and then you go over to another, and there's 100 on 100, and Lego's got this 100% on this.
What really impressed me in sorry, Mad Queen, the new Assassin's Creed game. The number of NPCs that they packed into every corner of that game that are being procedurally loaded. It was crazy. You're going through a city. It's almost impossible to ride your horse through a city without injuring people because they're just freaking everywhere. And so that technology is there. But I remember even playing Hitman. I think it was Hitman Contracts. No, Hitman. No, it was Blood Money. It was Blood Money. And there's one mission that takes place at a festival. And somehow, and this game is several years old. I can't remember when it came out, but somehow they managed to, when you're out on the street, there's this massive crowd of NPCs. But they're there, but they're not really there. They don't have any AI. They're all just walking around in straight lines, but they actually somehow they did that, but now you can have that number of NPCs and have them actually be interactable. I have to disagree with you there, Axel. I actually really enjoyed Assassin's Creed Origins, but to each their own. So anyway, I cut Mad Queen off. You were going to say something.
Yes, I wanted to point out this thing about the amount of NPCs that you could have at the same time, and well, first because it's different depending on the amount of actions that these NPCs need to do. I mean, it's not the same an AI that just walks around, that one that's going to be your enemy and has to do more complicated things. So this goes back to my personal theory that has the internet divided. Some people hate me for saying that, I know, but I'm going to say it anyway. I believe that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be for next generation. And this is also another of the reasons why I believe that it's going to be a game for next generation.
Probably,
because that city, Night City, is huge, and it's also so full of people, amazingly full of people. I don't know, and it's so amazingly full of people, and I expect that you will be able to interact with way more people that you were able to interact with in, for instance, The Witcher 3. And in Assassin's Creed, you can't interact with the people; they are just being there and being annoying.
Yeah.
So the technology is evolving, and well, actually, as the next generation has to be here soon, according to the life cycle of consoles, I really hope that I'm right, because again, this is just a speculation. I don't really know. I really hope that this game is for next generation, because the technology, as we were discussing before, the technology wasn't there, but soon the technology is going to be even better.
Yeah.
And wow.
Well, and I do see your point there. I mean, I think you'll definitely, with the next gen consoles, you have the ability to have a far more immersive and crowded world. But, and we've talked about this before, if they restrict it to the next gen consoles, that's going to be bad for their bottom line. So I suspect that that's not the direction they're going to go with it. Like that it will be exclusively.
Every time that I discuss this with people, it's I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful with this comment, but people seem to forget that this is not the first generation of consoles, and in each generation happens the same. There's always one or two games that are the head of this generation, and they don't mind taking risks about that, and they end up being successful. So this is not the first time that happens in the history of renewing generations of consoles. And even myself, I bought a PlayStation 4 to play Bloodborne, because I was happy with my 360 that I had. I still have a lot of games to play there. And when you buy a console, you don't buy it for a game. I didn't buy the console to play exclusively Bloodborne. because I knew that if you know that if you buy a console, you're going to play to a lot of games, but this game impulses you to buy it sooner, because in the end you're going to buy the new generation anyway if you like gaming. So
Right.
it's not. It's very funny when people say, "Well, I'm not going to buy this console just for a game." You don't buy a console just for a game. The game only makes you buy it sooner or buy one brand, but doesn't make you buy a new console, because you buy a new console because you're a gamer and you know that there are going to be tons of amazing games on the PlayStation 4 and you want to have one.
Yeah, no, I do see your point there. I agree that there's more to it than just playing. No, it's not just for playing one specific game, but at the same time, if somebody has to buy the new console in order to play a game they really want to play, that some of them are just not going to be able to afford it.
Hey, that's how I picked my games. Like, my first console, I bought my first console because I wanted to play just one game. I can't remember what it was.
Was it Halo?
The Soul Calibur beach volleyball, I think. No,
what?
Dead or Alive beach volleyball. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, it's the fact or not, that kind of depends on I think where the consoles are, but I don't think that CDPR is going to slow down their. I think they're going to put this game out as soon as it's ready, and I think that they want to put it out for early 20. I know that they want to put it out for 2019, and I'm pretty positive that they were for a while thinking that they would hit the 2018 window, but I don't know. We'll see about that. That's the one thing we don't know for sure yet. I'm quite positive that it's going to be 2019, but they could surprise us and do 2018.
Well,
don't get your hopes up though.
If you go to IMDb, that I believe that can be considered official, because only the developer can modify the file of a project there. Mm-hmm. The official date of production start is 2016. It's not 2012. I mean, they haven't been working on that. Well, actually, I talked about that with the interviews I did to developers of CD Projekt. People were moved from Cyberpunk to The Witcher. So, actually, Cyberpunk they didn't really start with Cyberpunk until they were done with The Witcher and DLCs. So that's why I don't believe that 2018 is a date where we could see the game yet.
Well, I think yes and no. So, like, they didn't really dig into the engine until 2016, but they have been working on the design aspects, on the lore, on the probably writing tons and tons of quest stuff and doing a lot of the core work. I think they have been doing that.
Yes, but wait a second. This core work is the pre-production. Pre-production goes before, and pre-production was done in 2012. I mean,
well, the early stuff, yes, but I mean, like they didn't write every quest in 2012. I think they've been writing quests, and I think they've been writing dialogue for from then until now. I think they're still doing that.
Well, the thing is, as I found out while I was doing these interviews, the thing is that there was a small team working on Cyberpunk while most developers were moved to The Witcher. And the thing is, when the people of The Witcher finished with the DLCs, everything that was done for Cyberpunk, most part of it wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed to redo a lot of work. So they really started in 2016. That's something that I was afraid of, but that's reality.
No, that's technology-wise, right? That's not lore and like writing and
the production-wise. I mean, starting to build the things, starting to animate, starting to modulate.
Mm-hmm.
Production-wise, they started 2016.
Right.
Yeah, but I think what we're seeing here, I think what we see with CDPR in contrast to Bethesda is very, very happy at keeping a very small team and staying very focused on projects. And they understand that, that the time between one of their big titles and their next big title is going to be probably a decade. And apparently they're okay with this because it works for them. And,
it works.
Yeah, at CDPR, though, I think that they want to constantly ramp up. And that's why they are sitting at, it's almost like 500 employees now. It's ridiculous. It just keeps on ramping up and ramping up. And I think that's a good thing. That's good to have that constant growth there if you can handle it. Some people like Todd, he's less inclined to work with 1,000 people. He wants to know everybody's name, all of their spouses' names, and then all of their kids' names. So that, I think, is something that is a little bit of a different choice in studio direction. But I think what we have here is we have a ramping up. So we don't know.
I know where you're going with this, but before you go there, I need to remind you that at this precise moment, CD Projekt is working on Cyberpunk, it's working on Gwent, and it's working on another 2 AAA titles we know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody at CD Projekt Red is working in Cyberpunk.
No, but they're still hiring every day. Like every day,
yes.
There's almost every day, every week.
But they have another 2 teams working, 2 teams that we know nothing about.
Yeah. So no, I'm not saying that they're all working on CP, but I'm saying that they're ramping up their production capability very, very quickly. I think that they do have really high aspirations. I think they want to become as a big of a machine in the game world as EA is, and I think they want to do that and work on all these different titles all at the same time and have this humongous thing, because I think they can. If there's going to be a crash in the market of gaming, the first people to go down is going to be EA, and is going to be. They're going to crash and burn. Why? Because they have all these investors. They have all these things that they have to answer to. They've got all these different studios, and they don't work well as a cohesive unit. I mean, that's why we see so many problems coming out of that company. But I think in this, I think CP or CDPR is trying to maneuver themselves into a bit of a better position. So we'll see with that. Anyways, we should really finish up on what Mike Pondsmith interview.
Yeah, we start talking about things and we completely forget about the main subject here.
Yeah, so his work on Matrix Online is really worthy noting, because Matrix Online was supposed to be the original conception for it, and I know that the way that Mike had talked about what he wanted to do was more like the movies. In the movies, they're walking down the street and there's just people everywhere. They're walking down the street in New York and there's people everywhere. And that's what they wanted to go with for the Matrix Online. They wanted to have, you walking through crowds and crowds of people. And I don't think they have that. They didn't have that technology at all available back then. Now I think they have that technology available now. And I think we're going to see a lot of that, that mass people kind of Assassin's Creed-ish kind of feel, because you want to be, having that interaction. I'm sure there's going to be some people that are going to go crazy and they're just going to shoot up everything that they see. And,
I'm going to be one of them.
Yeah. So we'll kind of see on how that goes. But moving on, basically, one of the things that he talks about is how, when he's doing a gameplay session, playing a pen and paper version of any game, he has an imagination in his mind of the scenarios that he's setting. And I've played a fair bit of like the old pen and paper D&D kind of games, and you do have this sense of the types of stories and the types of things that you want people to encounter, and you're hoping that their imagination is getting into the imagination of you. But I guess it all depends on the viewers, because every time I walk into an inn in the D&D world and there's an elf maiden selling beer, I want to have a nice conversation with her, whereas somebody else is like, oh no, she's actually just a spawn for the Lich, which is a terrible waste of an elf maiden, I swear. Anyways, it's that concept of that was a joke. There's a concept of swing and a miss. I
love the way that you had to explain that.
I thought it was funny.
I know. So there's this thing where he talks about how in conventional video games, they don't always have the imagination that the game master has, and this is something he mentions in the interview, and so that he wants to be able to bring his imagination into into the game, and I think we're going to see real potential in this direction because he's been wanting to push this for so long, and we already saw how the narrative, the story, the imagination of the original books for The Witcher really worked in The Witcher in the game series, and it really took you into that world, and it really helped you feel that kind of story and the direction. It was just a shame that I had to stare at Gerald's butt the whole time while doing it. But yeah, then he goes on to talk about how when he wrote Cyberpunk, there was, he was wanting to talk and focus on the issues that he thought there might have been, and then how he wants to incorporate that into kind of the here and the now. So the big thing that I find that really one of the best things about this interview is how he says, how do we design the AI, the artificial intelligence, so that they remain focused on the common interests of the world and not on their own interests of like that movie Her, where all the AIs get together and they all like transcend to a higher plane of existence. That's something that AIs might actually have to struggle with, is like, do we concentrate on staying integrated with these little flesh bags, meat bags, or do we reach for the stars? And so that kind of stuff is really interesting, and it's really fascinating. So and then also the people, like, how do people find meaningful jobs? This is something else he said in the interview. How do you find a meaningful job for people to do instead of them just becoming human shells? And I think that's something that Ready Player One even kind of touches on, is like people are just engrossed in being entertained, and they've lost all sense of having a mission, having a purpose. So these are really vital game play affecting questions, because when you are setting up this world, you want to set it up in a way that somebody's like, why would there be people on the streets when they could just send drones? Like, seriously, why go outside, risk getting gunned down by a crazy player, from the NPC's perspective? Why risk getting gunned down by some insano lunatic on the street if all you can do is just stay in a virtual world and send out robots to do whatever you want them to do, or just have everything delivered, or whatever? Like, even as far as work goes, like, why go to work when you can work from home theoretically, or why go to work when? And so these questions that he's asking in gameplay reactions and what that means for what they've prepared for the game world, I think we're going to have this aspect where these kinds of things are constrained by an environment that forces people to go out.
Well, and I think that there's going to be a massive social aspect to it for that reason, and that might be where the multiplayer hub comes in, the social hub, because even if you have a world where everything's automated and you can you don't have to run errands anymore because you can get everything delivered, etc., you can work from home, people still have the urge to socialize and go out and be with other people.
Well, on this subject, on the social part, that's the difference between the people that complains about politics on Twitter and the people that goes to marches and demonstrations with it. That's more or less the same. Mm-hmm. Why do you need to get up from your couch if everything is delivered to you? There are some things that you need to fight for. You need to do it on the streets. It's not the same being a net runner than a rocker boy.
Mm-hmm. Never thought of a political protest as a social experience, but yeah, I kind of see what you're saying.
You haven't been to any political protests, then?
I have never been to a political protest. No.
No, you never. You never had anything to protest about.
There's stuff I'd
not in our part of the world.
No, see,
too cold. Canadian wasteland. Snow everywhere.
We live a great deal. We live quite far away from the people we'd actually be trying to protest, so it's not terribly practical to try and do that. So,
well, rocker boys are part of Cyberpunk character class that are very politically orientated, because they are not just singers, they are people that use music to fight authority. So in general terms, Cyberpunk is a game that is very political, political, obviously inside the politics of Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Becoming every day closer to real politics.
Well, because I get the impression it's a world where politics is dictated by the most powerful corporations. Like,
are we talking about our world or Cyberpunk?
No, we're talking about, well, the two are becoming a little too similar sometimes. But you have a company like Google that's got more net worth than many small countries of the world now. So,
well, in the world of Cyberpunk, this is explained because there was this crash on the 90s. I believe it was 94, I mean. In the 90s, there was this world crash where most of the governments of the world just crashed if they were companies, and mega corporations had to take its place. That's how they explain the power of mega corporations.
Yeah.
Not that they were actually buying politicians. They just became...
They became the power structure of the world, which
Yes.
is an interesting concept. But I mean, it sounds fanciful and dystopic. But when we are living in a world now where you have global corporations that have more power than many world governments, then
actually, if Google wants to well, I'm not sure if he's currently doing it. I mean, I don't want to make a political statement about that because I really don't have the information. But if Google wanted to orientate the results of some voting in whatever the country, it could do it just by the things it shows. In fact, this was a problem with Facebook. Facebook shortly ago was accused of doing that, of showing some kind of political propaganda and hiding some other kind, because they are powerful and they can do so. So everybody wants to have them on their side.
that's not the only really messed up stuff Facebook has done.
Yeah,
They can.
I know.
Facebook is experimenting on you, by the way. If you're on Facebook, they're not above experimenting on you. They have done experiments on people, seeing if they can alter your mood by changing what they show you.
I've always wondered this, right? Like, I've always sat back and said, the whole plot of, like, Fallout, the Fallout universe where the government and this big corporation end up just testing everybody that they put in these vaults to see what they can learn from, like, 150 plus year study programs. I always thought that was a little weird and a little, like, over the top. Now that we find out that Facebook has been running, like, sociological, like, personality based experiments on people without their consent, it's like, oh, I guess we do live in a dystopian future now, and it's only getting worse every day.
It's pretty much.
Did you see this documentary where former employees of Facebook talk about this? Is this documentary? It's on YouTube. Sorry.
This is Notional just made a really good point in chat. When the service is free, you are the product. That is how it works.
Obviously.
You are Google's product, and
the worst part of it is that we got used to have everything for free and you becoming the product. We got so used to that we don't question ourselves about that anymore. So why are they giving me this for free? There must be a reason.
They're profiting off you somehow.
Yeah,
and you might not like how they're doing
it. What we'll see. That's what we'll see played out in the game world. I think I've said before, I think the story of Cyberpunk 2077 is going to revolve around, like, the main story is going to be kind of like this fight the power kind of thing, and then there's going to be all this, like, low end, like, just stay alive, right, kind of quests, and the very, very people side of things. And I like that. I like that I've only finished Skyrim as far as, like, beating the big bad. I've only done that twice, but I've had probably close to 1,000, 2,000 hours now. I think I'm up to 3,000, where all I have been doing is, just running around and doing the little stuff, building a house and setting up a farm, and these are mods, by the way, and making a family and that kind of stuff, also mods. That kind of stuff is more interactive. It's more fun to do the little stuff. I hate these, like, I do hate these quests where they start out like, hey, you're a farmer who's never wielded a weapon until you grabbed an ancient sword and from a riverbed the other day. Now go save the universe.
Yeah.
It's like, huh? Can I start with my neighborhood? Is that possible? So this kind of story writing, I think, should be pretty cool, pretty interesting.
Well, to be honest, I've been thinking about the possible stories, and there is one that I'm quite positive that is going to be a quest in the game. What I don't know is going to be main quest or secondary quest, but I'm sure that it's going to be in the game, and it's going to be about Arasaka, because at the end of the fourth corporate war, one thing that happens is that Netrunner, the one who liberates Alt Cunningham, in the end has in his hands Kei Arasaka, is the son of the founder of the Arasaka company, and he makes Kei use the Soul Killer. What does that mean? It means that his physical body dies, but he is trapped inside the Soul Killer. It's not clear if his soul dies or he became immortal as Al Cunningham did. So, if he became immortal as Al Cunningham did, what do you believe? He's going to be in the game? I'm sure that he's going to be in the game. Mostly also because we saw, well, Arasaka is one of the main mega corporations. Arasaka, both Arasaka and Militech, they are the main mega corporations of the law. And we saw at the offices of CD Projekt that they had this sign that read Arasaka. So it's that was a clear hint that Arasaka was going to be in the game. So I believe that this would be a great quest for Arasaka.
Oh, that's a great.
Because well, at this point you can choose if you want what side are you going to be in here. If you're going to be against the mega corporations, or you're going to try to work with the corporations, because you can liberate him, or you can kill him, or you can make a lot of other decisions. But yeah, Kei Arasaka, I believe that he's going to be there.
Makes sense, yeah. Too. I don't know. I am stoked to see what they do with this.
Well, and there's certain things that you can pick up on as far as the story goes, and as far as like the lore and the kind of then the basic setups, and then the kind of like the best practices as far as like game development goes. We are going to start as a nobody. It's very possible that we could start from like some kind of a stasis thing scenario. Those are great to set up, because then you don't have to deal with these questions of like, you know, who was the character before you became the character. Like, you know, you get this in Skyrim all the time. Well, who was the Dragonborn, right? Like before he showed up in Skyrim, or she, or you know. Whatever.
Right, yeah.
What were they doing, you know, 2 days ahead of this time? Like, what were they doing 2 years ahead of this time?
It's like you just wake up on that wagon with amnesia.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm on my way to get my head chopped off. Okay.
And so stuff like that is it's not the greatest when they do stuff like that. I mean, for Elder Scrolls, it's a bit of their stereotypical like starter. Every starter you start as a prisoner. And then in you know, in most Fallouts you start out as a vault dweller, and that kind of a story, an experience that would be pretty good. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how they start that. We know that you can customize and create your character, so is it going to be the, you know, any character goes, or is it going to be the, you know, the Shepherd scenario from Mass Effect, where it's like, okay, you can customize your character, but you're still the same. Like, you're still the same person. Like, you know, everybody has their own, you know, Shepherd that they have from Mass Effect, but you have different. Like, you have the guy or the girl, but they're still Shepherd. And so, are we going to have that scenario, or are we going to have the scenario where it's like
it's completely different in Cyberpunk? It's completely different because the philosophy of the game is completely different. Being a person in the world of Cyberpunk and being constantly changing your gender or your physical aspect is something that is usual. You can start as a male and you can end like a female if you want, or trans, or whatever you want. This is transhumanist. a transhumanist game. It's another type of philosophy, and I understand what you mean about being starting from like Futurama. I understand what you mean on the storytelling standpoint, but the problem is that this is not very cyberpunk.
No, so I think what we're going to have is we're going to have the, like you start out as a character, and you're going to you start out as a you're not playing the Geralt or the Shepherd story. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think you're going to start out as you were anything and you can be anything basically, and so you're not special. You're not special in that way. That they have that character being. I think they're going to start more from the kind of the way that Bethesda does it, where you're not the shepherd, you're just a random Joe, and you can just be any old random Joe that you want to be. And
that would be very cyberpunk, because in the end you don't care about big things in cyberpunk. You don't have this fulfilling your destiny prophecy thing.
Yeah,
you don't have it at all. You just want to survive.
Yeah, I think that's a better place to go. And then it's also like it also fits that kind of world a little bit more. Like you said, you can be literally once technology gets to the point, you can be anything. Like, you can be a robot, and I will definitely be a robot as soon as the possibility allows for me to become a robot. I will be a robot, because why? Well, flesh is weak. It sucks. Terrible. I can't stand on the moon without a spacesuit. Therefore, pointless. Get me into a robot body. That's all I want.
Yeah, okay. So, in your robot body, you're going to be able to taste and feel things?
Well, of course you can. I mean, you're already going to have technology that's going to be bordering that. I would be very interesting to know what. So
you'd be more like a Fallout synth.
Oh yeah, way more like a Fallout synth.
But what kind? I mean, an android or a cyborg?
Oh, like an android who's like, more like Data than like a traditional cyborg. You think iRobot, Will Smith. You think Master Chief from Halo. You think Arnold Schwarzenegger from Terminator. He's not a cyborg.
He's a cyborg.
No, he's not a cyborg.
Just a human. He has human skin. Yes,
but you can lose all of that human skin and still operate. That's not what a cyborg is. A cyborg by definition.
A cyborg by definition is a robot that it also contains
biological parts. But one can't work without the other. That's typically how it goes.
I thought cyborg was a biological being that contains.
Augmentation.
I was going to say robot part. I wasn't sure what word to use, but like.
But it can also be a computer who has has integrated biological parts. Like the best example I could think of this is the Borg. The Borg are the quintessential cyborgs, because you can take away their biological part and they're dead. You take away their technological aspect, and I mean it's either recovery or they're dead.
Well, because Picard, they were able to de-cyborg Picard, but it was not a
not completely. He's still got a lot of He's still got a lot of bits inside of him.
But yeah, like the Terminator in like the original Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator, he was completely a robot that they wrapped in flesh.
Yeah, that's not
and
really
was disconnected from the flesh.
Yeah, that's not really it's not really a cyborg, like, because you can have that set up where it's like you can have a physical like skin, but if you don't need it, then you're more of a synthetic android than you are a cyborg. So I think that's where the terminology separates from. But at any rate, it's and it's like that for people in the game, in the cyberpunk world, where it's like you've become too much of a robot and you start being like, well, now it's time to get rid of all the meat bags. I'm gonna have so many meat bag reference jokes. Great.
Meat bags.
I'm brushing up on my HK-47 lines. It's gonna be awesome. query, you are me. No, I messed it up already.
Notional had a question about, or a comment about, I hope CDPR nails the first-person shooter. Weapons feel low latency and proper kickback from the weapons and such. I imagine they're going to go pretty realistic with those, as we saw in the virtual tour of their studio. They have all kinds of prop guns in their development studio. Now, obviously, I'm sure they're not live firing, but they might go down, like maybe they are going down to the gun range and live firing some of these weapons to see how they handle and stuff like that. So I imagine they're going to make them fairly realistic. But then again, we are talking about the weapons of the future and the cyberpunk future, so there might be
judging from the comments, guys, this we are going to have a full-on cyborg versus android debate sometime in the near future. This is great. I love the reaction so far. So yes, we literally.
Well, in fact, robot, android, cyborg, the three concepts.
Yeah, robot, android, cyborg, and I would also throw in synthetic. The androids from the Alien series, where they're like the fleshy, they're robots, but they're robots that they have skin, they have taste and touch and
yes, but the skin they have is not biologic. It's
they can walk out onto they can walk out onto the moon and be okay, because they're not unless there's some kind of a decompression issue with like fluids and stuff on their insides. But that's what Cylons. That's another great example. Like that's not, because they're like the biological meat bag versions are still very much biological. Okay.
One day we'll make a video.
One day we're gonna break this down completely, but I don't want to get too sidetracked from the from Cyberpunk right now. That is a great thing, and I want to have this debate because it's really cool.
Bald Men Win says, cyborg rules, androids can't even drool. And on that note, I think we'll put that discussion to bed. So I think that we're reaching the end. We've been streaming for almost an hour and a half. If you have any final questions or comments, please post them in the chat now, and we'll try to get to them. But do you two have any final comments on what we got from Mike Pondsmith in this interview that you'd like to touch on now?
Well, I'm so hyped. Does this count as a final comment?
Yeah, that works. I'm right there with you. I'm super. I haven't been a Cyberpunk fan for forever like you have, but I love the genre.
Actually, it's a dream. It's a dream came true. Seeing a Cyberpunk video game when I was a kid, teenager, and I was playing so much Cyberpunk. At one point, I was dreaming that they would do a film, and in fact, I believe that I explained something. Explained this before. At one point in my head, I made the trailer of the film, of how the trailer was going to be, how they were going to introduce the different classes in the trailer. And this is something that's been on my mind since I was a teenager. And when I found out, because I found out about the game really late, I don't know under what rock was I sleeping, because I didn't realize, I didn't came to know about this game since more or less the release of the film Ghost in the Shell remake.
Uh-huh.
And I found out about this game in a very stupid way. Because again, I can't understand under what rock was I sleeping that I didn't know anything about that, and no one told me. a little bit of both. And when I saw about this game, I went absolutely crazy. But crazy. I spent 2 days surfing the internet to learn up to the smallest thing we knew about the game, and I made my first video about Cyberpunk like incredibly hype. It was a year and a half ago, more or less. And yeah, I went absolutely crazy with that, and what it means for me to see something that's been on my mind for so long, to see it come true, is absolutely fantastic. I felt something similar when I watched The Lord of the Rings, the film, because at this point, when I watched the film for the first time, I already read The Lord of the Rings 11 times. And this was a universe that was living in my head for very long, and seeing it on well, reality in the sense of a film, seeing it in reality, it was, I don't know, it was a feeling that I feel so sorry for the people that didn't read The Lord of the Rings before watching the film and did it after, because they missed this. And this is something that I'm going to go crazy when I'm able to play Cyberpunk, this universe that lived inside my imagination for so long. And also because I have my own dogma. I have my own this is something that Neil Gaiman addressed on Twitter when people was talking about these series that are going to be done based on Good Omens, the book he wrote with the guy from This World. This World? Yes. I can't remember the name of the writer. Well, guy. When they were talking about making the series, by the way, David Tennant will be on it, which is the main reason, the second reason why I'm going to watch it, because I love the book. He said, Neil Gaiman said on Twitter, please remember that the dogma in your head, the dogma that you create when you read the book, maybe it's very different from one person to the other. So not being something that is directly linked with images as a book, as the books of Cyberpunk 2020, I am sure that there are going to be many things that I imagined differently. But even though that is going to happen, I'm going to... Terry Pratchett, yes, thank you. Dancing on the Ashes, Terry Pratchett. That's the guy who wrote the book with Neil Gaiman. Good Omens, great book. Please read it. And yes, I know that when the game is out and when I'm able to play it for the first time, I'm going to be on this in the same place that I was when I watched The Lord of the Rings for the first time. I'm going to be like, oh my god, this came to life. The first time that I watched the trailer, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry, I'm sure. And before we go on to the next subject, Dancing on the Ashes is asking, have you seen Altered Carbon yet? I started. I will do a pajama rant as soon as I finish the series, but I'm not done yet because I'm incredibly busy. But
we are also planning to do a video or a stream on it. Someone asked about that earlier. I'm only halfway through the series.
We have a real special guest coming too. It's going to be awesome. So yes, we are just waiting for Ash to finish up watching it, and then we will do a spoiler cast on it sometime. Probably next week. I'm hoping, like, it might be next weekend at the earliest. So at the earliest next weekend, and we will go full bore into the story, into the world, into the universe, because our special guest has done a lot of reading about the books and stuff like that. So we're gonna go hardcore into it. So yeah, if you're a fan of that, subscribe and keep an eye out for that. We will probably do a live stream version of it. So.
Probably. These live streams have been going really well. We're really enjoying doing these when we can. By the way, everybody, I see there's people in the chat talking about adding Steam accounts and playing multiplayer games together and stuff like that. Join our Discord server, folks. We have just recently started really promoting it. So it's not extremely active right now, but we want to build more of a community around it. I just posted the link in the chat. It is so it's a public server for those of you who are subs, fans of the Triple S League, want to get together, talk about games and movies and things like that. There's also a chat room for finding people to game with. So definitely, if you want to connect with people who have the similar interests as you and play games together or just talk and hang out, that kind of thing, absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely join our Discord server, and you can connect with people there. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to find people there for PUBG or Fortnite, anything you want. Mad Queen hangs out there. Cyb and I are in there all the time whenever we're online. So, yeah, stop by and talk to us. I made a chat room to talk about Cyberpunk 2077, as well as rooms to talk about other kinds of things. If you want to see, if you want anything added, any specific topic rooms or anything, just let us know on there. There's voice rooms as well. So we want to build it for you guys, basically. We really enjoy connecting with the community around this, and we really want to do that more. So I see Dancing on the Ashes already up in the Discord. Cool. All right.
I would like to answer a question by Night Raid that said, when do you think the PS5 will come out? I made a video about that, but in short, when do I think next year, November 2019? Why do I believe that? Well, there's people that is saying that in this E3 we will see the new PlayStation. I personally don't think so, but an analyst that usually is always right with everything that revolves around Sony's hardware, he said that he explained the reasons why. Very long explanation, but he said that we will see a new PlayStation on this E3. If we consider the life cycle of the consoles of Sony, the latest that they will put the console out will be next year. And usually the life cycles of technology goes shorter, not longer. So, well, we have 4 consoles up to today to make, to know how much time goes between console and console. And people, when talking about the PlayStation 5, thinks that the PlayStation Pro was released very shortly ago. And I do remind you that the past generation of consoles, we also have an update of the PlayStation, because the Pro, it's only an update. Even Sony refers to it as something that is slightly better, but not a lot better. Not like the Scorpio that was way better than the one. The PlayStation Pro is only slightly better than the 4. And on past generation, we also had upgraded version of the PlayStation 3, and this upgraded version was on the market for 2 years. And 2 years after the Pro version was released, then the PlayStation 4 was released. So don't think that they are going to hold the PlayStation 5 because they released the Pro. And on the other hand, one of the problems that Sony has right now is that the Scorpio, that I know that is not called that way, before anyone corrects me, I know Xbox One X, I know the name is horrible, I rather Scorpio. This is how we called it before it was released. So the Scorpio is 40% more powerful than the PlayStation 4. So PlayStation cannot afford to wait a lot to release a new console, because they just can't. If they do, no matter how good their games are, they're going to be way behind. So it's going to be difficult that the PlayStation 5 is on the market later than next year.
Yeah, and you see this. I mean, this is like, you touched on the analysts who look at this kind of stuff and who make calls on this kind of stuff, and they make so many calls that their jobs are dependent on them having, really good info, and almost all of them are agreeing that we will have a new console for the PlayStation and probably a new Xbox by November 2019. So it makes absolutely, sense that they're going to have that they're going to update that way. And again, consoles don't move the majority of their stock in their first year. They move a good portion of their stock in their first year, but the sale and the people switching over to it, some people, they save up and they update when a game actually comes out that they want to play for it. So this next November is not too far away for that. And there's some people who are going, oh no, it's going to be 10 years. It's like, yeah, 10-year life cycle of a single console, that is not something you're going to see these days anymore. That's just, it's way too long.
Technology moves way too fast. Yeah.
Well, it happened. It was the third that took 8 years. PlayStation 3 that took 8 years, but it took 8 years because they had a technical problem. The life cycle of Sony's console is 6 years usually, and it's going to get only shorter. It's not going to get longer.
And the big companies, they stamp down gaming technology. Like, they really put on the brakes on companies, creating new products, creating new games, creating new things that demanded more and more from them. Like, that was, I'd say it was almost like a dark age in gaming, was the 3 cycle, because these companies were actively encouraging companies to not innovate. because they wanted to stick with the status quo for so long. And I mean, you look at what happened to that and what that gave rise to. What did that give rise to? That gave rise to the new indie wave. That gave rise to Minecraft. That gave rise to all these companies, to Star Citizen, where these companies we are being held back. So I'm going to create a Kickstarter, and I'm not going to go to the big companies for funding. I'm not going to go to big groups for funding. I'm going to go to the people for funding, and that's blown this market apart. That's destabilized everything as far as this goes. So yes, this cycle of the current consoles is wrapping down, and we were going to have another one, and then the next one past that is going to be even sooner, because you've got some pretty big names thinking about joining this whole console fight. So that's going to change everything. That is going to change literally everything, and we're seeing this now. We're seeing these big companies start to look at major acquisitions. We're looking at like all kinds of movement on this now, because it's also that, 10 years ago, within the last 10 years, I mean, the market for games has like quadrupled. So now you're looking at an industry that's bigger than movies. And like, if it's bigger than movies, that's saying something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. So David, to answer your question, like I see Mad Queen answered you in the chat. Contact us on Discord if you want to know about that kind of a thing. And Bald Men Win asked, what was your first console? Here it is. Bald Men Win says, my first gaming system was an orange Pong console in 1977. What was yours? And do you still want to go back and play it?
Well, 1977, I wasn't born yet. Mine was a Sega Mega Drive.
Sega Mega Drive?
Yes, that was my first. Well, before that, we had an Atari at home, but I was just too little. I believe that when I was little, the Atari was already old. But the first console I had that I played myself was the Sega Mega Drive.
See, cool. My dad bought the one of the original Ataris, and he played Pong, and he really enjoyed it. But he's like, these video games are really cool. But he wanted us to learn how to use computers, so he bought us a computer to learn on, and so one of the so I never got a chance to play the consoles as much as I wanted, only when I would go to like friends' houses and stuff like that. But one of the first like PC games that we played, Jill of the Jungle, and that game where you like place the pipe so that you make the water flow. That was the other big one.
Oh, the one on like Windows 3.1 Entertainment Pack. That one.
Yeah.
Oh man, I played the crap out of Windows Entertainment Pack back in the day. But my first console was the original NES with Super Mario Brothers 3, and I don't want to go back and play it because you couldn't save, and half the time the cartridge wouldn't connect properly. But I love the game. Super Mario 3 is a fantastic game. But how do we feel about esports?
Quick question for everyone: which video game was your personal favorite during your childhood? Day of the Tentacle. You ever played Day of the Tentacle? By the way, it's available on Apple Store, and I suppose that on what's the other platform?
Oh, is it?
Android. Yes, it costs like $2, $3, and you can play Day of the Tentacle. It's been upgraded to be a phone game. It's absolutely fantastic. You can play it all over again.
Yeah,
I had no idea you were a fan of Japanese art and
hentai?
Oh, different kind of. Oh, sorry, different one. Never mind.
Okay, raise your hand in the comment section. Raise your hand if you got that joke. You should really stop watching hentai if you do.
I don't know what my favorite game was when I was a kid, except I know what sort of the elusive, mystical, forbidden fruit of my childhood, as far as gaming was Wolfenstein 3D.
Oh yeah,
because it was the one I was.
Well, I had a problem with that game. I had a problem with that game. I got dizzy playing it, but really dizzy. I had to stop. It only happened to me once again in the future was with Alien Isolation, that I had to stop playing the game because I got really dizzy. And at one time playing Wolfenstein, I fainted. I even fainted.
You're talking about the original Wolfenstein 3D?
3D, yeah, Wolfenstein 3D.
Wow.
And not Fall of Blood, obviously. I mean, I don't know what was into these animations that I just couldn't stand it. And I thought that this was the only game in my whole life what was going to happen, and it happened to me again playing Alien Isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Game that was a birthday present, and I couldn't finish because I got really dizzy playing it.
Huh, that's too bad. But not with Prey. You didn't.
No, I didn't have any problem with Prey at all.
That's because that. Those zero-G sections could be really disorienting in that game. But, yeah. That's interesting.
No, I didn't have any problem with Prey at all. Funny game. Incredible game. If you didn't play Prey, you should.
Mm-hmm.
Notional is... I'm not really cheap.
Notional is saying if you get simulation sickness like that, increasing your field of view can help. So...
Increasing your field of view. What does that mean?
In the graphics settings.
Oh, yes.
Increasing your FOV. Yeah. So it's interesting.
No, it doesn't happens to me a lot. Sometimes with small parts of the game, for instance, in the caves with Witcher 3 or inside the submarine in Wolfenstein 2, I get a little dizzy, but not a lot. Not like really sick like Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I never would have thought that of that game making people motion sick, but I suppose that's really interesting.
And the most interesting thing is that I played a lot, even in the 90s, mm-hmm. and never happened to me that I got motion sick.
I had Wolfenstein 3D on my phone for a while, a couple of years ago, on my iPhone. It was a lot of fun. All right.
There's a web where you can play the original Wolfenstein, the film. And I believe that there's another where you can... Inside Wolfenstein 2, in some parts of the submarine, you can play Wolfenstein 3D as well.
Oh, in the new games, if you go to sleep, you have nightmares. BJ has nightmares, and you go back and play levels from the original games. So.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. I beat the game completely. I didn't know that.
I don't know if it's... I can't speak for New Colossus, but in the New Order and in... there's one spot in the New Order where you can do that, and then in the Old Blood, you can... There's a whole bunch of them. Where you go back and you have nightmares that are actually old Wolfenstein 3D levels. It's really cool.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so... Alright, well... I think that we need to end the stream here. I feel bad because the conversation is going great, but feel free to keep up the conversation in the chat or, head on over to the Discord server and talk about anything you like there. Lots of people asking, what's your favorite game? What game would you want to see remastered? So, very interesting discussions. We'd love to have, but we just need to end the stream here. So thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Mad Queen, for joining us again. Thank you, Cyb, as well as always, for all of your input. And there's going to be more of these streams. And yes, we are super hyped for Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget to tune into our live podcasts on Tuesday afternoons. We do our podcast live now, and we've been having a lot of fun with that. But enjoy the rest of your weekends, everybody. I don't know, for some of you it might already be Monday morning, who knows. But I hope you all have a great week, and we will talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.